I've always prided myself on my intuition, a niggling sense that whispers secrets the world tries to hide. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the gut-wrenching betrayal that unfurled right before my eyes. The hidden camera, a mere precaution turned harbinger, displayed the unfathomable. There she was, my wife, the woman I pledged my life to, entangled in a sordid affair with the last person I would suspect, her sister's husband. The venom in her words, "You are much better than my husband, and the main thing is you will never find out," stung sharper than the act itself. My heart didn't just break, it shattered into a million shards of disbelief and agony. But amid the chaos of my emotions, a cold, seething rage began to simmer. But now it's time for my sweet, cruel revenge. Oh yes, they deserve it, I whispered to myself, echoing her cruel sentiment with a twisted irony. The very fabric of trust and love I thought we wove so tightly was nothing but a mirage, a cruel joke at my expense. And so, under the veil of night, my plan began to take shape, each step carefully orchestrated to deliver the reckoning they so blindly invited. I confronted neither of them the next day. Instead, I wore my usual smile, served breakfast, and kissed my wife goodbye as if the sanctity of our marriage hadn't been desecrated. Oh, how she smiled back, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The audacity of her ignorance fueled my resolve. I knew what I had to do. My days were spent gathering evidence, compiling moments of their treachery, while my nights were consumed with crafting a plan so meticulous, so fitting, that when the curtain fell, their world would crumble under the weight of their choices. I reached out to allies unknown, secured favors from shadows, and prepared the stage for a revelation so dramatic, so utterly devastating, that it would leave them begging for a mercy that would never come. The anticipation of their downfall became my companion, whispering sweet nothings of retribution and justice. They will never see it coming, I reassured myself, the screen of my laptop illuminating a face hardened by betrayal yet resolved to emerge victorious. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity from those who dared to trample it underfoot. As the final pieces of my plan clicked into place, a wicked smile crept across my face. "Let the games begin," I muttered, the screen going dark, reflecting only the determined glint in my eye. They thought they could play me for a fool, but they were gravely mistaken. The stage was set, and soon, they would learn the true cost of their deceit. The morning air felt unusually crisp as I set my plan into motion, a symphony of revenge orchestrated with the precision of a maestro. The world around me buzzed in its mundane rhythm, unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. Today was the day my wife and her illicit lover would face the consequences of their betrayal. My first move was unexpected, even to me. I invited them both, along with her sister and a few close friends, to a dinner party at our house. The invitation was casual, a simple message that belied the turmoil within me. Their acceptance came quickly, accompanied by smiley faces and anticipation of a pleasant evening. Little did they know, the evening would be memorable but for reasons far from pleasant. As guests began to arrive, I played the gracious hostess, my demeanor calm and collected. The air was filled with laughter and chatter, a stark contrast to the storm raging in my heart. When my wife and her lover arrived, I greeted them with a warmth that made her visibly relax. Her sister, my unwitting ally in this charade, was the last to arrive, completing the stage for the night's performance. Dinner was served amidst lively conversations, the atmosphere light and carefree. Then, as dessert was being enjoyed, I stood up, tapping my glass for attention. Silence fell, all eyes on me. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady, "tonight is not just about good food and company. It's about unveiling truths that have been hidden too long." I could see the confusion in their eyes, the slight frown on my wife's face. I savored the moment before continuing. "With a heavy heart, I have discovered a betrayal that cuts deep, involving two people at this very table." The room tensed, the air thick with anticipation and dread. My wife's hand trembled slightly, her lover's face paled. I wanted to believe it wasn't true, but the evidence is undeniable. I motioned to the living room, where I had set up a projector. "Please see for yourselves." The guests, now silent spectators, followed as I led them to their seats. The lights dimmed, and the first image flickered on the screen. There they were, my wife and her lover in a moment meant to be secret. Gasps filled the room, her sister's cry of disbelief piercing the silence. How could you? Her sister screamed, betrayal and hurt evident in her voice. My wife stood, stammering, her words a jumble of excuses and pleas for forgiveness. Her lover, equally flustered, tried to explain, but it was futile. The evidence was irrefutable. I wanted justice, not vengeance, I said, my voice breaking the chaos. But sometimes exposing the truth is the only way to cleanse the wounds. The room was thick with tension, the revelations leaving a trail of heartbreak and anger. Yet, amidst the ruins of trust and fidelity, I stood firm, the architect of their exposure. As the night ended and the guests departed, whispers of support and admiration for my courage echoed in my ears. The chapter closed on a tumultuous evening, but the story of my rebirth was just beginning. The intrigue of how I would rebuild my life, and what lay ahead for those who wronged me, promised to weave an even more compelling tale. The aftermath of the dinner party rippled through our circle like a shockwave, its effects immediate and far-reaching. In the cold light of day, with the dust settling around the ruins of relationships, I find myself in an unfamiliar silence, a storm of my revenge having passed. But this silence is not peace. It's the precursor to the rebuilding of my life. A task I'm ready to undertake with a resilience forged in betrayal. My phone buzzes incessantly, messages of support and curiosity mingling with the inevitable gossip. Yet, among these, one message stands out, an unexpected olive branch from her sister, the collateral damage in my quest for justice. Can we meet? It reads, simple and loaded with unspoken words. I agree, curious about the conversation that awaits. We choose a quiet cafe, neutral ground littered with the remnants of other people's stories. She arrives, a mirror of my own turmoil, her eyes reflecting the shared pain of betrayal. I can't believe she would do this to me, to us, she begins, her voice a mix of anger and vulnerability. How did you find the strength? It wasn't about strength, I reply, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. It was about reclaiming my life from the lies. It's a journey, not a destination. Our conversation meanders through the wreckage of our relationships, touching on forgiveness, trust, and the elusive nature of happiness. We part with a shared understanding, a silent agreement that while we cannot change the past, we can influence our futures. As days turn into weeks, I throw myself into my work and hobbies, each day a step away from the person I was. But the universe, it seems, has one more card to play. A mutual friend reveals that my wife and her lover are leaving town, their departure a tacit admission of guilt and a bid for a fresh start elsewhere. The news brings a complex cocktail of emotions, but surprisingly, closure is among them. My narrative, once defined by betrayal and revenge, begins to evolve. I realize that my actions, though driven by pain, have set me on a path to self-discovery and empowerment. My heart, once burdened by the weight of betrayal, starts to envision a future unencumbered by the past. In this chapter of my life, the intrigue lies not in the shadows of revenge but in the light of new beginnings. The main plot, once centered around the act of betrayal, now shifts to the journey of healing and the promise of new horizons. As autumn leaves began their graceful descent, marking the transition into a season of reflection and change, I found myself at a crossroads, both literally and metaphorically. Standing outside the quaint bookstore that had become my sanctuary, I pondered the unwritten chapters of my life, now poised to start anew. That's when I saw her, my wife, or rather, the woman who once filled that title in my life, standing across the street, looking as lost and forlorn as I felt. Our eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of the myriad emotions swirling between us. The street, busy with the lives of others, seemed to pause, giving space for this pivotal moment. She crossed over, her steps hesitant but determined. I'm leaving tonight, she said, her voice barely of a whisper. But I couldn't go without trying to see you one last time. Why? The question left my lips before I could stop it, a part of me still seeking answers. For forgiveness, maybe? Or just to say I'm sorry one last time. She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I know I don't deserve it, but I needed you to know that. I studied her, seeing not just the woman who betrayed me, but also the person I had loved. I forgave you a long time ago, I admitted, surprising even myself. Not for your sake, but for mine. Her eyes flickered with a mixture of relief and sadness. Thank you, she whispered. As she turned to leave, a sudden impulse seized me. Wait, I called out. She stopped, looking back with a question in her eyes. Goodbye, and good luck, I said, offering a closure that was as much for her as it was for me. She nodded, a small smile breaking through her somber demeanor, and then she was gone, her departure closing the chapter on our shared past. In the weeks that followed, my life took on a new rhythm, one filled with unexpected joys and challenges. The intrigue of my story, once centered around betrayal and revenge, had evolved into a journey of self-discovery and forgiveness. But life, ever the author of surprises, had one more twist in store. A letter arrived one day, no return address, just my name written in a familiar hand. Inside, a set of keys and an address. Curiosity piqued, I followed the breadcrumbs to a small cottage by the lake. A place I had once described as my dream retreat during happier times with my wife. The note inside was brief. A final gift for a new beginning. May you find the peace and happiness you deserve. Tears blurred my vision as I stepped inside. The weight of the past and the promise of the future merging in a single overwhelming moment. The cottage, beautiful and serene, was more than just a place. It was a symbol of rebirth, a testament to the unexpected paths our lives can take. As I stood there looking out over the tranquil waters, I realized that the true intrigue of my story was not found in the pain of betrayal or the sweetness of revenge, but in the power of the human heart to heal, to forgive, and to begin again. And in this unexpected finale, I found not just the end of a story, but the beginning of another, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of new adventures. This was not just an ending. It was an invitation to a future where the past no longer held sway, where every moment was a step toward becoming the person I was meant to be. And as the sun set over the lake, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, I embraced this new chapter, ready to see where the journey would take me next.